actually at the University of Hartford do well is a couple of things. One, we focus on what is called learning beyond the classroom, where whatever work students are doing outside the classroom, we try and get them to sort of give credit for them, right? So we encourage learning beyond the classroom. We do a lot of internships. We do focus on a lot of hands-on kinds of, at least in digital media and journalism, we focus on a lot of developing products and developing those skills and competencies. In my classes especially, and I'm sure other faculty do this too, I focus a lot on developing critical thinking and working in teams and the intercultural thing. And then the idea is that, as you said, like they move 6 or 7 jobs in their careers before they figure out what they want to do. What we need to teach them is the resilience to sort of negotiate all this change.
Thank you for tuning in to this second installation of our episode with Dr. Sundeep Muppidi, professor at the University of Hartford. In this second installation, we continue to discuss the role of media and marketing through the lens of policy, social responsibility, and the future of work.
Hey, this is Jake Small, author of For Every Black Boy, and you're listening to Ed Up Accelerated Excellence.
This episode of Ed Up Accelerated Excellence is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of Ed Up Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EDUPXE15OFF. Check the show notes for more information or learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
Are you an educational leader or organization seeking innovation or just a new perspective? Then look no further. Accelerated Excellence Consulting is dedicated to offering support to educational leaders and their organizations to meet their full potential for excellence. Services include strategic planning and problem solving, continuous improvement expertise in areas such as assessment and accreditation, and professional development, empowering leaders, individuals, and groups for personal growth for organizational excellence. To learn more, find us online at xeconsulting.org. That's xeconsulting.org. Welcome to Ed Up Accelerated Excellence, the podcast for the advancement of educational excellence and equity. And I am your host, Jacob Easley II, PhD, PMP. And today's guest is the incomparable Dr. Sundeep Muppidi. Sundeep, welcome to the show. And will you introduce yourself to the Ed Up Accelerated Excellence in a way that only you can, by giving voice to your name and what's going on right now in your world?
Thank you, Jacob, for having me. And I'm happy to be on this show because I've listened to you. I've known you from Easton, and we have had a good relationship. And I've always admired your show because it's one of the things that I think is much needed going forward in terms of education, and we'll talk about that more. But coming to me, I wear a lot of different hats. You did mention I'm a professor at the University of Hartford. In other roles, I'm a global scholar. I'm a nonprofit administrator. I've been a screenplay writer. I'm a media producer. I'm an innovator, a tech entrepreneur. So there are different things I do, but that's part of my stress on doing everything interdisciplinary.
So in an information economy, again, we're inundated with this ever-changing communication technologies and outlets. But parents are concerned about screen time for youngsters, and schools and universities, as you mentioned earlier, are using AI, but they're still grappling with the integration of AI. So when we think about these kind of matters of using technology in day-to-day with youth and children and in schools and at universities, how do we think about social responsibility of consumption in this new age of communication technology? So social responsibility.
It goes back to it being a community effort, right? It's not someone, I can't sit in my home and say I'm going to be socially responsible and it's going to work. It needs to start at the level of policies, the processes in place, the kinds of practices that we allow and don't allow. It's like crime in society, right? There's a reason why certain behavior is criminal and certain behavior is accepted. Now, there's no reason why we can't apply that to information. When someone is deliberately modifying content to influence people for whatever, I mean, it could be just for profit purposes, it could be for whatever reason, there needs to be benchmarks and certain kinds of ways to cross-check and hold people accountable, right? It can't be the days of the Wild West where anyone who sort of gets the microphone can say what they want. I mean, there is the element of free speech to it, and there are guardrails around that, right? I'm not talking about eliminating free speech. I'm talking about guardrails that protect criminal behavior from the freedom of expression. So when, like Meta, for instance, and there's this new thing that was it yesterday or day before that someone had an article that talked about how Meta was now allowing, or Meta's AI tools were now creeping out children, right? And there has to be some checks and balances. Just because Meta has the microphone and the stage and the audience, they can't be allowed to do what they want to do. The responsibility can't be just on Meta alone to say, oh, we'll curb that behavior. Yeah, sure, they have a social responsibility, but there needs to be some accountability when that responsibility is not taken up, right? And it goes to politicians, it goes to policymakers, it goes to people. Everyone, there's a certain role they have to play. And it can begin with even watermarking certain kinds of content. What is AI-generated content? What is not AI-generated content? What is regular authentic information? And it could be certain independent agencies that are tasked with this. We have technology at such an advanced stage that technological solutions are easier to implement. They don't need to be as labor-intensive as in an earlier age. I was born in India in a world when there was, I did not even have black and white television when I was born. It was only in high school that I got that. Then later I went to color television, then came here, went through internet, and now AI. So I can see the difference between those different worlds and how things are changing, how things have changed, and how they're likely to change. And through it all, social responsibility is a big thing that has sort of fallen by the wayside because everything has become so much easier to produce, so much easier to manipulate, that the checks and balances and the legal processes are about 10 or 15 years behind. So we need to sort of focus on bringing that up and putting in place checks and balances.
Yeah, that's a very important point. So, what are your students concerned about when considering entering communications as a profession, and how are those concerns being addressed in your classroom or on other campuses that you know of?
I mean, there are different responses. I can think about that, but just off the top of my head, the biggest concern obviously is if they're paying so much money, are they going to have a job at the end of it, right? And I don't blame them for it. But while we prepare them for that, and we do a lot of different things for that, we have a course that teaches like them everything from how to create your LinkedIn profile to everything, right? How to market yourself, like it's like a career prep course kind of thing. What we actually at the University of Hartford do well is a couple of things. One, we focus on what is called learning beyond the classroom, where whatever work students are doing outside the classroom, we try and get them to sort of give credit for that, right? So we encourage learning beyond the classroom. We do a lot of internships. We do focus on a lot of hands-on kinds of, at least in digital media and journalism, we focus on a lot of developing products and developing those skills and competencies. In my classes especially, and I'm sure other faculty do this too, I focus a lot on developing critical thinking and working in teams and the cultural things. And then the idea is that, well, as you said, like they move 6 or 7 jobs in their careers before they figure out what they want to do. What we need to teach them is the resilience to sort of negotiate all this change. And like there was a time when students came in, there was nothing, social media wasn't big, but by the time they graduated in 4 years, a lot of them got jobs as social media managers, right? And what gave them the ability to become social media managers was that they learned the skills and the competencies and the literacies rather than just the content. They learned the content, but the skills and the competencies that they got allowed them to pivot and adapt to a different kind of requirement that these careers needed. And with AI, that is what's going to happen, right? People who are coming in, joining this year, by the time they graduate in 4 years, there'll be a completely new set of careers that they need to be prepared for. And as faculty and administrators, we need to sort of be envisioning how that is going to play out. And that is where I think we need to be sort of changing the models that we are working with.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I've heard you say that the golden age of journalism has passed. So Can you unpack this idea for us in the current context of journalism?
See, I mean, journalism as we defined it, as we know it, as we knew it, is in the past because it was sort of a broadcast era, right? Like where you had large media organizations that had a certain kind of image, that had a certain kind of reputation, that had a certain kind of credibility, including the bias, right? But that allowed them to do certain things and have a certain audience base or a reader base that is no longer there now. We live in a world of podcasting. We live in a world of consumers who can also be producers. Everyone can be a producer. There's a lot of YouTube kind of channels. There are lots of independent media producers. So the era of broadcasting is gone. The era of narrowcasting is here. So the audiences are specialized. The niche audiences. Everyone has like each influencer. Social influencers was something that was never anything in the broadcast era. But now everything is about social influences, everything is about individuals and image and branding and other kinds of things. So the focus has moved away from journalism as we know it to what I call content production now, right? Content, it could be informative, entertaining, anything, right? Like instructional, a lot of YouTube videos people learn from to change everything from a tab to fix a car to kind of things, right? All that I'm not saying is bad, but it's different. It's not the journalism that we knew, right? Now it's more like breaking news can be through a video that's a viral video from the where that event happens rather than through a network. And in that sense, the model has changed, and that again comes with its own inherent baggage in terms of, is it credible information, is it misinformation? So in that sense, the golden era is in the past, not now.
And so I'm thinking about this idea of the public sphere. Remember, public broadcasting, and right now we know the federal government has already, I think, approved defunding of money for public television, of support for public television. But would you say this era that you talked about, where we have podcasts like the podcast we're on today and TikTok, is this the great democratization of communications and media, or how would you define it?
I see it still as the Wild West of media in the podcast era, in the sense like we still don't have enough guardrails that can define what is good content as opposed to what is intended with malintentions kind of thing. So it's sort of the Wild West in the sense anyone can pick and choose what they want to consume. Right. And it's not necessarily bad, but what it comes with is the danger that the people who are consuming it don't have the necessary skills to separate out good information from bad information. And that can lead to a lot of social issues and social problems. The ability to sort of provoke people into thinking about things in a manner that is not necessarily correct. And in that sense, I think we need to be careful about this world. It will get to a point where there might be more streamlining of this content, where there'll be more accountability, where the legal and other processes will catch up. But it'll require visionary policy making, it'll require visionary thinking. And the defunding of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is definitely not one of those steps in the right direction.
Thank you for listening to EdUp Accelerated Excellence. This episode is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EdUPXE15OFF. Check out the details in the show notes or learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
Are you an educational leader or organization seeking innovation, or just a new perspective? Then look no further. Accelerated Excellence Consulting is dedicated to offering support to educational leaders and their organizations to meet their full potential for excellence. Services include strategic planning and problem solving, continuous improvement expertise in areas such as assessment and accreditation, and professional development, empowering leaders, individuals, and groups for personal growth for organizational excellence. To learn more, find us online at xeconsulting.org. That's xeconsulting.org. Wild Wild West. And I think I think folks can definitely associate that with the and the advent of AI, but I don't think I had really thought about it as the wild, wild west in media in general, particularly in social media. But that's a very interesting perspective. And we're speaking with Dr. Sundeep Muppidi, professor of digital media and journalism at the University of Hartford. Sundeep, so what is next for you? Pause. I know you talked about your gaming platform for learners. You can definitely reiterate that, but what's next for you, and how can the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community engage?
Well, one of the things that I have trained to be, and one of the things that I came to Eastern on, was the ACE fellowship that I did that was helping me train to be a higher education administrator. And the president of Eastern, Elsa Nunes, was an amazing mentor in terms of my learning the ropes of higher education administration. But over the years, what I have done is step back slightly, because the kind of models, as I keep saying, are still very outdated in higher education administration. And people are still worried about their terms. People are still worried about sticking to those models till they retire, kind of thing. But what we need are actually visionary leaders, people who can innovate, people who can strategize, and have the courage to change the education models, right? So what is next for me is to sort of try and look for opportunities and spaces that allow me to innovate, that allow me to sort of, like, let's say a good example is the gaming platform that we're looking at is about badging and credentialing and developing certificates. It's not about getting 120 credits or 90 credits. It's more about saying, do you have a credential in, let's say, AI, right? AI innovation or whatever. It doesn't require 120 credits for you to be an innovator in learning with AI. But to work sort of as a transition between the old model and the new model, you can still come up with models that give you badges for getting certain competencies, certain skills, certain number of badges accumulate to give you a credential, certain number of credentials accumulate to give you a certificate, certain number of certificates accumulate to give you a degree, right? I'm not saying that's the only model, but that's a way where you can address these issues of tuition costs. You can address this issue of developing skills that get people into jobs that require those skills without having the burden of a 4-year college, right? And there are all these associated things of, you still need to develop the student personality. You still need to develop if there's one thing that the 4-year model helps students do, is it's about developing their personality, right? Helps them grow and realize their full potential. But again, there's a question about how many 4-year models now are actually doing that, right? So I'm working at identifying those spaces or those kinds of models where I can contribute and push this forward. That is what I'd be interested in. And the reason I was happy about being on this podcast, and as I've told you before, I like this kind of platform because you also talk about innovation in education, right? And this is a platform where we can explore new dynamics and new models that can help propel education forward.
And we're part of the EdUp experience. It's just a network of podcasts, and each one has its different focus. So there may be one that's primarily higher ed, one that is learning development, one is we have in Spanish and Chinese, one in career development. So there are multiple ideas, but I do thank you for that around the idea of innovation. And I hadn't thought about it quite that way, but I believe you're absolutely right, because almost every guest is talking about innovation, which is some novel approach for the advancement of humankind, centered around educational excellence and equity. So with that, I want to thank you for this opportunity to learn with and from you here at EdUp Accelerated Excellence.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed always talking to you.
Thank you for engaging with EdUp Accelerated Excellence, a member of the EdUp Experience Network of educational podcasts. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Radio, and other outlets where you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow us and share within your network. To leave a comment or suggest a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com.